Tony Gosling, a freelance journalist.
The Bilderberg conference that's coming up this year, it's an annual meeting, and it's a very secretive group run by a steering committee of about 140 participants, a conference where it's a place to disseminate policy across the world, or particularly the Western world's media. So the Bilderberg conferences began 10 years after the Second World War, and it was set up by the CIA, or the OSS during World War II. It was OSS money that got the first meetings going. Well, there's no dispute about where the money came from. It was OSS, the War and Peace Studies Group of the OSS, which was also part of something called the Council on Foreign Relations. So the Council on Foreign Relations really represents the foreign interests of American companies. The Americans were very worried that many European countries, as a reaction against the Nazis, might side with the Soviet bloc and become part of the Soviet Union, and they wanted to make sure that didn't happen. The first meeting took place in Oosterbeek, a suburb of Arnhem in Holland, in 1954.
The Bilderberg Group is meeting this year.
Well, yes, this year the Bilderbergers are meeting in Watford, of all places, just inside the M25, and a place called the Grove, which is a secluded hotel. But this is the first time that there's ever been organised a Bilderberg Fringe Festival with marquees, where people can come along and hear alternative views to what the Bilderbergs want. And I should point out, the Bilderbergs themselves control almost all the money in the Western world. They are the top bankers, the top royalty, who obviously, you may think that royalty are kind of symbolic, but they're not. They're massive landowners and massive shareholders. For example, the Queen is by far the biggest landowner on the planet, the richest woman in the world. Because she's such a big landowner, she's getting rent on all that land, as well as her £5 million pay rise as well this year to look after her palaces. Dutch royal family are the major shareholders in Royal Dutch Shell. These are very, very rich people. So it's royalty, the bankers from the Bankers Bank, that's the Bank for International Settlements, and all the other big central banks, including the European Central Bank, the IMF, the World Bank, the Federal Reserve. All these people are there. So this is the top of the top, really. Ne plus ultra is how The Economist once described it. There is nothing above this. And as a secret meeting, there isn't anything really quite like it. Bilderberg is the 0.00001%. It's the very top of the tree in the NATO countries in the Western world. Charlie Skelton's done some very good work in The Guardian exposing the connection of the Bilderberg Group to creating a false fake opposition. For example, in Syria, the Syrian National Council is all orchestrated by Bilderberg people, and it's all connected to the secret state in the Western world. So they are very active, although of course they say this is just a talking shop. The committee itself is virtually a secret government for the NATO countries, and they have a very great deal of political influence. They invite people along, like Tony Blair was invited just before he got became Labour leader in opposition. Same with Bill Clinton. He was along there just before he got the Democratic nomination. So in a way, Bilderberg is negating our democracy when we go and vote. We're not. They're already deciding who they want us to vote for and who they want to actually lead our political parties. Never mind, it's okay voting for your local MP, but you don't get a vote on who your party leader is and what direction the party's taking. And I think it's one of the reasons we've got a crisis in leadership, is that our leaders are not being chosen by us in a democratic fashion, or even by an open way by our MPs. They're being chosen by what you would call the plutocrats, that is to say, the people like the Bilderbergers. Obviously there's the big oil companies are in there, the big media companies. They have Peter Thiel's there, who funded Facebook, the Facebook Zuckerberg, the bosses of LinkedIn, Google, PayPal, this kind of thing. They're all in there too. So you're looking at a kind of technocratic elite, and there's this Bilderberg Fringe Festival somewhere close to the venue, but there's sort of marquees, festival equipment going to be heading up there for that weekend. Hopefully the police will be sensible and allow a sensible amount of space for these people to gather, rather than just expect them to stand in the road.
And what date is this festival happening?
That's the 6th to the 9th of June 2013. And I'm really rather proud that Britain is doing the first alternative counter-conference.
Are you going to be speaking at the festival yourself?
Well, I hope so, yes, and I want to talk about the connections with the Nazis, because the first alarm bells I got about the conference was finding out that the chairman for the first 20 years was himself an ex-SS officer. He tried to hide this fact, then it was finally brought out in his biography, and he had to admit to it. And since he's died, Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands has been exposed in Holland as a consummate liar on many, many issues, including he denied actually being in the Nazi Party while he was at university, but people have gone back to his university and actually found the records where he was one of the very first people to ever join the Nazi Party. Well, the Americans wouldn't have him anywhere near their military operations, neither would the Royal Navy, but King George VI ordered Ian Fleming, who was working for MI6, to give Bernhard security clearance. There are suspicions that he was simply there spying for the Nazis. It's Tony Gosling here, a freelance radio journalist. I do a radio show in Bristol every Friday drive time, www.thisweek.org.uk, or it's on Bristol Community FM 93.2.